She sat alone at the wedding, until the alpha said, "Pretend like you're with me, ring." She came to the wedding just to watch others find love, not knowing fate had already written her name beside the alpha's. One command. One glance. And her quiet night turned into a story she'd never forget. When the alpha stepped forward and said, "Pretend like you're with me," the room froze. But what started as a lie would soon uncover betrayal, hidden pain, and a love deeper than pride. Rose, this emotional African love story blends mystery, heartbreak, and destiny, showing how one moment can change everything. Headphone listen till the end, every second is worth it. The music was soft, the laughter loud, and the perfume of roses and expensive champagne hung in the air like pride. Everyone shimmered in gold and silk, but she, Amira, sat alone. At the edge of the wedding hall. Her chair was half hidden behind the tall floral centerpiece, as if even the decorations tried to forget she existed. No one noticed her. No one ever did. Her dress was simple, cream lace, the kind you buy in the market after haggling for an hour. It wasn't ugly, no, but it wasn't the kind that whispered rich either. Not in this hall, where women wore gowns that looked like they were stitched from moonlight. Her fingers toyed nervously with the edge of her clutch bag as the bride laughed across the room, surrounded by people. Amira forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't really invited, not properly. The bride had been her roommate once, years ago. She'd said, "Come if you want. There'll be space." But space was all Amira had tonight. She told herself she didn't mind. But when the music shifted to a love song and couples began to dance, something inside her cracked a little. Because deep down, every woman wants to be seen. Then it happened. The moment that changed everything. A shadow fell across her table. Slow. Deliberate. She looked up, and froze. The alpha. Yes, that alpha. The one people whispered about, even when his back was turned. The one with the scars across his knuckles and eyes sharp enough to silence a room. His suit was black, too perfect, too tailored, and the faintest trace of power followed him like thunder waiting for rain. Amira's heart stumbled. He didn't belong in this kind of celebration. Everyone knew he rarely showed up at social events, let alone weddings. And yet, there he was, looking straight at her with those unreadable eyes. And then, he said it. "Pretend like you're with me." Just like that. No explanation. No smile. Just a command wrapped in quiet urgency. Amira blinked, confused. Her throat went dry. What did that even mean? Before she could respond, his hand brushed her wrist, not roughly, not softly either. Just enough to send a tremor up her arm. His touch was warm, steady, real. And in that instant, the hall shifted. Heads turned. Whispers started. The Alpha King, yes, the powerful, cold, and impossibly distant Alpha, was standing beside her. The lonely girl. Amira didn't understand why. She didn't know what danger lurked in the tension that suddenly filled the air. But she knew this, pretending might save her from something worse. So she straightened her back and nodded faintly. And just like that, she became someone else. The girl who was with him. For the next few minutes, she could feel eyes burning into her from every corner. Some jealous. Some shocked. Some filled with cruel curiosity. Her heart was pounding so loud she could barely hear the music anymore. But behind the Alpha's composed face, there was something else. Something wild. His jaw clenched when a man in the crowd smirked their way. His hand tightened slightly on her shoulder, as if protecting her. Amira didn't dare breathe. What was happening? Why her? It wasn't until later she would learn the truth. That the Alpha had chosen her for a reason that had nothing to do with luck, and everything to do with revenge, loyalty, and an old promise he'd never kept. But right now, all she knew was this. For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible anymore. And for the first time, the Alpha wasn't just a story. He was real, standing next to her. And whatever game he had started, she was already part of it. The hall was still buzzing. Music played, but it no longer sounded sweet. Every beat felt like a pulse inside Amira's chest. The alpha's hand stayed on her shoulder, firm yet controlled, as if warning the world, "Don't touch what's mine." Except, she wasn't his. Not even close. The bride threw glances in their direction now, her smile faltering each time their eyes met. Guests whispered behind wine glasses. Some laughed quietly, pretending not to stare, but Amira could feel the heat of their gossip. Her throat tightened. She wanted to run. To disappear. But the alpha didn't move. He stood there like a statue carved from silence, scanning the room with eyes that missed nothing. Then suddenly, he leaned close, too close. His breath brushed her ear, his voice low and rough. "Stay still," he murmured. It wasn't a request. It was an order that sent shivers through her entire body. Amira's pulse jumped. Why me?" she whispered, even though she knew he wasn't the kind of man who explained himself. He didn't answer. Not at first. He just watched as a tall woman in a glittering red gown approached them, her lips painted like danger. The woman's smile was beautiful but poisonous, the kind that could slice a man's pride in half. "Adrian," she said, "so that was his name." "The alpha's name. You didn't tell me you were bringing someone." Her tone dripped with mock sweetness. Adrian didn't flinch. He turned slightly, his arm sliding around Amira's waist like it had always belonged there. "I didn't have to," he replied calmly. "You seem surprised, Lydia." The woman's smile twitched. "Surprised?" "Not really. Just wondering when you started dating, wedding leftovers." Laughter erupted from the small circle of people around her. It was soft, cruel, and sharp. Amira felt her face burn. She didn't belong here, she knew that. Her shoes were borrowed, her purse second-hand. Every part of her screamed ordinary in a room built for royalty. But before the tears could reach her eyes, Adrian's hand tightened protectively on her waist. "Careful," he said, his tone quiet but dangerous. "Mock her again, and I'll make sure no one remembers your name by morning." The woman's smile froze. The laughter died instantly. Then, with a fake laugh and a flick of her hair, she turned away. Amira stood there, speechless. Why would a man like him, cold, feared, untouchable, defend her? The crowd began to move again, and he finally let go of her waist. The warmth of his touch lingered long after it was gone. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, staring down at her trembling fingers. He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the crowd, scanning faces like he was hunting something. Or someone. "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I just needed a distraction." The words stung. But the way he said them, there was something underneath. Pain, maybe. Or regret. She wanted to ask more, but his expression had already changed. His eyes narrowed, his shoulders tensed. And she realized, he wasn't here to celebrate the wedding. He was watching someone. Tracking someone. And somehow, she had just become part of his plan. Then, with the same calm tone that first drew every eye toward him, he said softly. "Smile, Amira. The real game is just starting." And in that moment, surrounded by gold lights and fake laughter, Amira finally understood, she wasn't pretending anymore. The alpha had pulled her into his world. And whether she liked it or not, she was in too deep to escape. The wedding lights dimmed slightly as the next toast began. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and the crowd cheered for love that was already rotting beneath its shine. Amira sat still beside the alpha, her mind tangled with questions she dared not ask. His words still echoed in her head, "Smile, Amira. The real game is just starting." But she couldn't smile. Not when her heart felt like it was skipping in fear and curiosity all at once. The alpha hadn't moved since the toast began. His eyes were fixed on the groom. The groom, handsome, polished, and grinning like the world belonged to him. He looked like every bride's dream, tall, charming, confident. But something in the alpha's eyes said otherwise. He wasn't just watching him. He was studying him. Like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. The groom lifted his glass. "To love that never fades," he declared. The crowd cheered. But Adrian, the alpha, barely blinked. His jaw tightened, his fingers tapping once against the table. A silent rhythm. A sign of calculation. Amira leaned slightly closer, her voice trembling. "Do you know him?" A pause. Then he said quietly, "I used to." The tone in his voice was heavy, the kind that carried stories buried deep under scars. She wanted to ask more, but he spoke again before she could. "Look at the bride," he said. Amira did. The bride, radiant in her white lace gown, was laughing with her bridesmaids, but her eyes, they weren't laughing. There was something else there. A flicker of unease. A shadow. And suddenly, the music didn't sound so joyful anymore. Amira swallowed hard. "Something's wrong, isn't it?" Adrian finally turned his gaze toward her. His eyes, cold but clear, met hers. "He's not the man she thinks he is." Those words chilled her. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. His attention shifted to the groom again, who now had his arm around the bride, whispering something in her ear. Her smile was stiff, strained. "3 years ago," Adrian said slowly, "that man worked for me. He stole something I couldn't afford to lose. And when I tried to make it right, he disappeared, until today." Amira's breath caught. "You mean he's the groom?" Adrian's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "He was smart. He changed his name, his look. But you can't hide your scent forever." Scent. The word sounded strange in her ears, but before she could ask what he meant, the alpha's eyes darkened with something raw and dangerous. "He thinks he's safe now. But tonight, he learns otherwise." Amira shivered. She didn't know what was unfolding, but it was clear, this wasn't about love or weddings anymore. It was about vengeance. And somehow, she had become part of it. The groom turned, his gaze briefly meeting Adrian's across the hall. The smile on his face froze for half a second. His eyes widened slightly, recognition. Fear. Then it was gone, hidden behind another laugh and a toast. But Adrian saw it. He felt it. He leaned back, his voice low enough for only Amira to hear. "He knows I'm here." Her fingers gripped the edge of her chair. "Then why stay?" He smirked faintly, eyes gleaming with quiet fire. "Because he hasn't realized yet. I never come uninvited." The lights shifted again. The couple moved toward the dance floor. The bride's smile wavered. The groom's hand tightened around her waist, almost possessively. And Adrian stood. Slowly. Calmly. Powerfully. The crowd went silent without knowing why. His presence alone drew attention like gravity. Amira watched, breathless. Whatever history lay between those two men was about to resurface. And tonight's perfect wedding was about to crack open like glass. The dance floor glittered like a dream, chandeliers spilling gold light over the perfect couple swaying to slow music. Guests circled around them, clapping softly, whispering in admiration. But to Amira, the scene felt like the calm before a storm. A storm wearing a black suit, and moving straight toward the groom. Adrian's steps were measured, slow, each one echoing through the marble floor. His aura, heavy, silent, commanding, made the crowd instinctively step aside. They didn't know why they moved, they just did. It was the kind of dominance that didn't need words. The groom turned mid-spin, his smile faltering the moment he saw him. For a brief heartbeat, everything froze, the music, the laughter, even the bride's breath. "Adrian," the groom said finally, voice strained but trying to sound calm. "Didn't expect to see you here." Adrian didn't smile. His gaze stayed fixed on the man like he was staring through him, not at him. "You should have expected it," he said quietly. Whispers spread like smoke around the hall. Nobody knew what was happening, but everyone felt it, the shift in the air. The tension thick enough to slice with a knife. The bride looked from one man to the other, her hand trembling in the groom's grip. "Do you two know each other?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian's jaw tightened. His reply came sharp, cutting through the silence. "He used to work for me." The groom laughed nervously. "That was a long time ago." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Long enough for you to steal everything and run?" Gasps rippled through the guests. The music died completely. The bride's smile shattered, confusion flooding her face. "What is he talking about?" she demanded, turning to her husband. "Is this true?" But the groom didn't answer. He couldn't. His hands had started to shake. Amira watched from her seat, her heart thundering. She had no idea what exactly had been stolen, but the alpha's voice carried something deeper than anger, betrayal. Adrian took a slow step closer, and the groom instinctively stepped back. 3 years, Adrian said, his voice low but heavy. 3 years I searched for you. You stole from me, betrayed my trust, cost lives I couldn't save, and now you stand here pretending to start fresh? The groom's mask finally cracked. "It wasn't what you think." "It was exactly what I think," Adrian cut in sharply. The crowd was frozen, torn between fear and fascination. The bride's eyes filled with tears. You lied to me?" Her husband turned toward her, desperation in his tone. "Please, listen." But she pulled her hand away like his touch burned. The hall fell silent again, all eyes shifting between them. Adrian's expression softened for a moment, just a flicker of pity. "She deserved better than being dragged into your lies," he said quietly. Then he turned slightly, his gaze finding Amira. For a moment, the room disappeared. Amira's breath caught. He wasn't just an alpha with power and anger. Behind his eyes, she saw exhaustion, loss, humanity. And she realized, whatever had been stolen wasn't just money or status. It was something personal. Something that had left a scar on his soul. The groom's voice trembled. "You shouldn't have come here, Adrian." Adrian gave a small, cold smile. "And you shouldn't have crossed me." The hall doors opened suddenly, guards stepped forward. The tension snapped like a string pulled too tight. Amira's pulse spiked. The night was about to break open completely. Because this wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was the beginning of a war. The wedding hall erupted into chaos. Guests whispered in frightened tones, others hurried toward the exits, and the band, unsure what to do, pretended to tune their instruments while sneaking glances at the confrontation unfolding before them. The groom's guard stepped forward, but they hesitated. Something about Adrian, the alpha's stillness, the quiet dominance in his stance, made them think twice. Power didn't always shout, sometimes it whispered. Amira sat frozen, her hands clutching the edge of her chair. She could feel her pulse in her ears. The alpha's calmness was terrifying. The groom's fear was worse. The bride's mascara streaked down her face as she turned to the man she'd just married. "Tell me it's not true," she begged. "Tell me he's lying." The groom swallowed hard, his jaw trembling. "I did what I had to do, Zara," he muttered. "What did you do?" she cried. He didn't answer. But Adrian did. "He sold my pack," he said quietly. The room froze. Amira frowned, confused. "Sold his pack?" Adrian continued, his words steady but filled with buried rage. "He betrayed every man, woman, and child who swore loyalty to me. Sold their safety to my enemies for money. For greed." The groom's face turned pale. "You don't understand what it was like back then." "I understand enough," Adrian cut him off. "You traded loyalty for gold. You left my people to die." The words dropped like stones. The air in the hall thickened, heavy with something ancient, something darker than human politics. The alpha's eyes gleamed faintly now, something wild flickering beneath his calm. Amira's breath caught. She didn't understand everything, but she knew this man wasn't just powerful by title, he was something else entirely. Something dangerous. The groom's voice broke. You think you're a saint? You started that war. You left us nothing. Adrian's expression didn't change. You could have come to me. Instead, you ran. You hid behind a false name. You let innocent people suffer for your choices. The crowd didn't understand what they were hearing, but they felt it, the kind of pain that ran deeper than wealth or pride. Then, without warning, Adrian turned and began to walk away. But before he left, his voice carried across the hall. Enjoy your wedding night, Marcus. It'll be your last moment of peace. The groom flinched. The bride gasped. And then, the alpha was gone, vanishing into the night as if the shadows themselves had swallowed him. Silence. The hall stood still for a long moment before everyone began to murmur again. The bride broke down crying, the guests scattered, and the band quietly packed up their instruments. Amira sat there, numb. Her body refused to move. She had no idea what kind of world she'd just been dragged into. But deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Because when Adrian's gaze had met hers before he left, there had been something else there, something unspoken. A warning. A connection. A promise. And that night, as Amira finally stepped out of the wedding hall, she found him waiting by his black car under the streetlight. His hands were in his pockets, his face unreadable. But his voice, when he spoke, was softer than she'd ever heard. You shouldn't have stayed, he said. She hesitated. You told me to pretend. I didn't think you'd do it so well, he murmured. She tried to smile, but her voice shook. What happens now? He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly. Now, you decide if you want to walk away, or if you're ready to know what really happened. The wind blew softly between them, carrying the faint scent of rain and something else she couldn't name, danger, maybe, or destiny. And Amira realized, whatever truth he was hiding, it had already chosen her. The night air was thick with silence. The laughter, the music, the lights from the wedding, all of it felt far away now. Only the sound of distant thunder and the hum of Adrian's car filled the quiet. Amira stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't know why she stayed. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper. He finally looked at her. You really want to know? He asked softly. She nodded. Adrian exhaled, the kind of breath that carried years of pain. He wasn't just a thief, Amira. He was my brother. The words hit like lightning. Her lips parted in shock. Your brother? Adrian's eyes were distant now, fixed on the night sky. Half-brother. Different mothers. I trusted him to lead when I was gone. I left everything, my pack, my people, in his care. But greed, his voice tightened. Greed changes people. He paused. The thunder rolled closer. He made a deal with my enemies. Sold them information about where my warriors and families hid during the last uprising. They attacked at dawn. Amira's heart ached at the way his voice faltered on that last word. How many? She asked quietly. Too many, he whispered. My mother, my beta, my closest friends. Gone. The wind shifted, brushing her face. For the first time, she saw it, the weight he carried. The anger wasn't pride. It was grief disguised as control. I hunted him for years, he continued. Not for revenge. For justice. But when I found him tonight, he paused, shaking his head. Seeing him there, with her, smiling like he hadn't destroyed lives, it broke something in me. Amira didn't speak. She couldn't. I didn't plan to involve you, Adrian said after a moment. You were just. The girl sitting alone, she finished softly. His eyes met hers. No, he said. You reminded me of someone. The one person who never judged me before everything fell apart. For a brief moment, their world grew still. He wasn't the untouchable alpha anymore. Just a man haunted by what he'd lost. Then, his tone changed, lower, quieter. You shouldn't have been dragged into this. But now that you know, you're not safe. Marcus won't let you walk away. Amira's stomach tightened. What do you mean? People like him, they don't forgive witnesses, Adrian said. He'll come for you. She stared at him. Then why tell me? He looked at her with that same unreadable calm. Because I don't want you to fear me. I want you to understand who I am before I protect you. She felt something shift inside her, not fear, but trust. A strange, fragile trust that came from seeing the cracks behind someone's strength. The rain began to fall, soft and cold. Amira lifted her face toward the sky, whispering, "You don't have to protect me, Adrian. You've done enough." He stepped closer, his presence warm despite the rain. "I don't protect out of duty," he said. "I protect what fate puts in my path." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, raw, unguarded, almost human. And in that fleeting second, she realized the truth. She hadn't just been a distraction. She had been chosen, maybe by accident, maybe by destiny, to remind him that not all light dies after betrayal. When the rain grew heavier, Adrian opened the car door and nodded toward her. "Come with me," he said. "This story isn't finished yet, but you don't have to face it alone." She hesitated, then stepped forward. Not because she was fearless, but because something in his voice felt like home. And as the car drove away under the storm, the wedding behind them faded into memory, a symbol of lies unmasked, of pain uncovered, and of two souls meeting when neither expected it. Moral of the story. Sometimes, loneliness places us exactly where fate needs us to be. Amira sat alone at that wedding, unseen and unwanted, yet it was her stillness that caught the alpha's eye and changed both their lives. Life's twists aren't accidents, they're invitations to become part of something greater than our pain. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to tell us in the comments section the country you are watching from.